The sun had barely risen over the jagged horizon of Virelia 7, casting long shadows across the rough, reddish terrain. Commander Ethan Hayes squinted against the glare, his hand instinctively brushing the sweat from his forehead. The human colony here was still young, barely holding together in the face of unpredictable storms and hostile alien wildlife. Yet Ethan felt alive. This planet tested everything he had learned about survival, strategy, and patience. His squad moved cautiously along a narrow ravine, scanning for signs of alien activity. The intelligence reports had been clear. A rogue faction of Kailari warriors had set up a forward post somewhere in this region. The Kailari were formidable, standing nearly 8 feet tall with muscular scaled bodies and sharp angular faces. They were a species designed for war. But it wasn't their strength that worried Ethan. It was their unpredictability. Unlike humans, the Kailari did not negotiate. They either dominated or destroyed. Ethan motioned for a halt. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara, lowered her rifle. "Do you see anything?" she whispered. He shook his head. "Not yet." "Keep your eyes open. Something feels off." They had been following the faint trail of footprints for hours, and the dust told a story. Something or someone had moved quickly through this ravine. Ethan crouched, studying the prints carefully. One set was unlike the others, delicate, precise, and slightly larger than a human's. He frowned. "Commander," Mara said, pointing ahead. "I see movement." Up on that ridge, Ethan followed her gaze. A figure emerged, tall and imposing, yet unmistakably injured. It was a Kalari, a female warrior. Her left arm hung limply, and there was a deep gash across her shoulder. Despite her injuries, she moved with the grace of a predator, every step measured and deliberate. "She's alone," Ethan murmured. "And wounded, that's unusual." Mara raised an eyebrow. "You think we should help her?" "She could be bait." Ethan shook his head. "No, humans don't leave anyone behind. And I have a feeling we're meant to find her." The Kailari noticed them. Her eyes, a striking shade of emerald, narrowed. She hissed, a low guttural sound that made the air seem thicker. She raised a jagged alien blade. Ethan raised his hands not as a sign of surrender, but as a signal. "Wait," he said calmly. "We don't want to hurt you." She tilted her head, studying him with suspicion. For a long moment, neither moved. The wind swept through the ravine, carrying the scent of dust and wild plants. Finally, the Kailari made a sudden lunge, but it was weak, uncoordinated. Ethan reacted instinctively, sidestepping her and grabbing her arm before she could fully strike. She struggled, but Ethan held firm. His training took over, calm, precise, controlled. With careful movements, he disarmed her and helped her fall gently to the ground. The Kalari froze, staring at him, her chest heaving. You humans," she hissed, her voice shaking. "You are unpredictable." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He knelt beside her, inspecting the wound on her shoulder. It was deep but not fatal. "You're lucky," he said softly. "We can fix this, but you have to let us help." She pulled back slightly, resistance flickering in her eyes. Her species rarely allowed touch from others, especially humans. Yet something in Ethan's calm demeanor and his steady hands and unwavering gaze made her hesitate. Slowly, reluctantly, she allowed him to begin treating the wound. The process was meticulous. Ethan cleaned the gash, applied antiseptic, and bandaged it. He didn't rush, and he spoke in low, gentle tones. The Kailari's body tensed at every touch, but she didn't push him away. Instead, she studied him. "What did you do?" she asked after a while, her voice almost a whisper. Ethan looked up. "I had helped you. That's all." She shook her head, disbelief in her expression. "No, that feeling. It's not pain, not fear. Something else." Ethan smiled faintly. "Humans have ways of calming each other. It's basic. Trust, patience. That's all I did." The Kailari's eyes narrowed, and she muttered under her breath, almost to herself. "Whatever you did to me." "Do it again." Ethan froze. Her words were both a request and a challenge. He realized she didn't fully understand her reaction. Her species were warriors trained to resist, and yet here she was, inviting him to repeat the very thing that had shaken her instincts. Before he could respond, a distant sound of movement caught their attention. Shadows moved along the ridge, other Kailari warriors searching. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He helped the wounded Kalari to her feet. She wavered, but he steadied her. "We need to move," he said quietly. "Can you walk?" She looked at him, skepticism and reluctance fighting in her gaze. Finally, she nodded. Together, they began moving down the ravine, careful to remain unseen. Ethan noticed how she adapted to his pace, her movements no longer purely defensive but cooperative. As they moved, he tried small talk. "Name?" he asked. "Kaylara," she replied reluctantly. "And you?" "Ethan, Commander Hayes." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Commander of what?" "Of humans who survive," he said with a faint smile. "Like you." Kaylara's expression flickered. She wasn't used to humans speaking this way. To her, strength was dominance, strategy was obedience. Yet here was a human who combined strength, skill, and something else, compassion. They found a small alcove where the Kailari could rest. Ethan sat nearby, keeping watch, while Kaylara examined her bandaged shoulder. She flexed her arm carefully, testing the healing. "You are strange," she said finally. "I get that a lot," Ethan replied with a grin. For the first time, Kaylara allowed a faint smile to touch her lips. It was brief, fleeting, but it was enough to make Ethan's heart beat faster. He knew this was a turning point, not just in her recovery but in the fragile connection forming between them. The sun climbed higher, beating down on the rugged landscape. The wind shifted, carrying distant noises that hinted at the approaching storm, and at the pursuing Kailari faction. Ethan and Kaylara had no time for hesitation. "You will follow me," Ethan said. "We have to get out of this sector before more of your people arrive." Kaylara studied him, her pride warring with her instinct to survive. She had been trained to fight alone, to rely on no one. And yet, here was a human who had saved her, calmed her, and made her feel something she could not name. Finally, she nodded. "I will follow, but if you betray me, I won't," Ethan interrupted firmly. "Not while I live." The storm broke that afternoon, fierce winds whipping sand and debris around them. But even as the world turned chaotic, Ethan and Kaylara moved with purpose. She watched him, and each step brought a strange mix of fear, admiration, and something closer to trust. Hours later, as night fell over the ravine, they found shelter in the remnants of an old outpost abandoned for decades. The structure was crumbling, but it offered protection from the wind and predators. Kaylara collapsed inside, exhausted, yet her eyes stayed on Ethan. "You are different," she said softly, almost to herself. "Different from every human I've encountered." Ethan sat beside her, keeping a careful distance. "Maybe that's a good thing," he said. For a long time, neither spoke. Outside, the wind howled through broken walls. Inside, a fragile bond was forming. Kaylara's body had been healed, but more importantly, her mind and spirit were beginning to question what she had always believed about humans. Finally, she spoke again, her voice quieter, more vulnerable. "Whatever you did to me, do it again." Ethan's heart skipped. He understood her now, not as a warrior demanding obedience, but as a being conflicted, curious, and slowly trusting. This was not surrender born of fear. It was a surrender born of recognition. Humans were different, unpredictable, and powerful in ways the Kalari could not yet comprehend. As night deepened, Ethan remained vigilant. He knew the danger wasn't over. The Kalari faction would not stop, and survival depended on more than just skill. It depended on trust, cooperation, and the strange bond that was beginning to grow between human and alien. And for the first time, Kaylara let herself relax, not completely, but enough to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, she had met a human worth following. Dawn broke over the jagged horizon of Virelia 7, the light spilling over the ruined outpost where Ethan and Kaylara had spent the night. The storm had passed, leaving the air dry and crisp, but tension hung between them like the mist over the canyon. Kaylara rose, testing her bandaged shoulder. She moved carefully, still wary, yet something about Ethan's calm presence gave her confidence. "We need to keep moving," Ethan said. "The Kalari faction won't wait for us to rest." Kaylara nodded, her eyes scanning the landscape. Her species were accustomed to solitude, to relying on themselves alone. But something about Ethan, his composure, his resourcefulness made her reconsider. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean on another being. They descended into a narrow valley where the shadows of alien cliffs provided cover. Ethan led the way, using hand signals and whispered instructions. Kaylara followed, mimicking his cautious movements. She was fast and strong, yet it was his strategy that kept them alive. Every ambush they avoided, every trap they sidestepped was a lesson in human ingenuity. "Why do you care so much?" Kailara asked quietly as they paused behind a rock formation. "Why help a Kailari? Especially me?" Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow. "Humans survive because we help each other. It's not about race or species. It's about life, and making choices that matter." Kailara stared at him, her sharp eyes reflecting curiosity and disbelief. "Humans are strange," she muttered. "You speak of choices, yet you risk your life for one." "Like me," he shrugged. "Maybe it's strange, or maybe it's what makes us strong." Their path led to an ancient ruin, a long-forgotten structure buried under layers of rock and sand. It was a place Kailari warriors would avoid, considered cursed or dangerous. But Ethan saw potential. Within the ruins' shadowed walls they could hide, plan, and recover. As they entered, Kailara's senses heightened. The walls hummed faintly, as though resonating with the energy of the planet. Strange symbols were etched into the stones, and some kind of ancient technology lay half-buried beneath rubble. Kailara's fingers brushed the carvings, and for a moment her usual caution melted into awe. "Your species, you're always finding ways to survive," she said softly, almost to herself. Ethan crouched beside her, examining a glowing panel embedded in the wall. "It's like nothing I've seen before," he said. "But I think I can make it work. If we need it?" While he tinkered with the device, Kailara observed him. Humans were fragile compared to her species. They did not have enhanced strength or natural defenses. But their adaptability, intelligence, and determination compensated for every weakness. And Ethan's calm presence, his careful hands and steady mind, reminded her why some humans could achieve extraordinary things. Hours passed. Ethan repaired the ancient machinery, and Kailara helped where she could. The two of them worked in silence, a silent understanding growing between them. The Kailari faction would not stop searching, and every minute mattered. Finally, Ethan straightened and examined the device. "This should buy us some time," he said. "We can use it to create a diversion if they come after us." Kailara studied him, impressed. "Your species, you are unpredictable. You find ways even in ruins." He smiled faintly. "That's humans for you. We survive, and sometimes we even thrive." The sun was setting when the distant sound of movement reached them. Shadows shifted along the cliffs. Kailari scouts, relentless and precise. Ethan looked at Kailara. "Get ready," he said quietly. "We're not walking out of here unnoticed." Kailara's body tensed. Her instinct screamed to fight alone, to overpower any threat. But this time she trusted Ethan. Together they moved strategically through the ruin, using its narrow corridors and broken walls to their advantage. Ethan's plans were precise, anticipating every trap and ambush. Kailara followed, covering him when necessary, her alien strength and agility complementing his human cunning. The scouts found them, but Ethan had prepared. Ancient devices hummed and flickered to life, releasing clouds of blinding light and energy. Kailara's pursuers stumbled, disoriented. In the chaos, Ethan and Kailara struck decisively, combining human strategy with Kailari power. The alien scouts were forced to retreat, their leader unaware of the full scope of Ethan's plan. After the fight, Kailara leaned against the ruined wall, breathing heavily. Her usual pride had been tempered by awe. I underestimated humans," she admitted. "You are more than your species should allow." Ethan shook his head. "We're more than just our species. We fight, we adapt, we care. That's our strength." Kailara's eyes softened. "You saved me again. Not just my life, but something inside me." Ethan studied her. "Trust isn't given, Kailara. It's earned. And you've earned mine just by surviving and choosing to follow." She turned away, embarrassed by the vulnerability her words revealed. Yet her next words were almost a whisper, repeating what she had said earlier. "Whatever you did to me, do it again." Ethan understood now. It wasn't fear or submission. It was acknowledgement, a recognition of the bond forming between them. He nodded, silently agreeing. The night was quiet, save for the distant calls of alien wildlife. Kailara and Ethan sat together, alert but relaxed. Conversation came slowly, hesitant at first, then more naturally. They shared stories of their worlds, of battles survived and lessons learned. Kailara's usual hostility softened with each word. She began to see humans as more than fragile creatures. She saw ingenuity, empathy, and courage. Days passed as they navigated the hostile terrain. Ethan taught Kaylara simple human techniques to enhance her agility and endurance. Kaylara, in turn, shared her knowledge of the land and alien technology. Each lesson deepened their mutual respect. During one particularly dangerous passage through a canyon, they were ambushed again. Ethan quickly assessed the situation, directing Kaylara to strategic positions. Together, they outmaneuvered the attackers. Kaylara's eyes sparkled with something new. Admiration, yes, but also trust. She realized that survival did not always require solitary strength. Sometimes partnership was the greater power. That evening, as they camped beneath the alien sky, Kaylara approached Ethan. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I did not understand humans before. I thought strength meant domination. But you show something different, something stronger." Ethan looked at her, meeting her gaze. "Strength isn't only physical, Kaylara. It's courage, creativity, and compassion. And you have all of it too, just in a different way." Kaylara considered this, then finally allowed herself to relax. She leaned slightly closer, a gesture she would have once seen as weakness, now one of trust. "Then I will follow you." "Not because I must, but because I choose to." Ethan's heart beat faster. "Good, that makes all the difference." The next challenge came swiftly. The Kaylari faction had regrouped, sending a larger force to capture them. Ethan and Kaylara had to navigate through treacherous terrain, using every skill they had acquired. They moved with precision, adapting quickly, using the environment and ancient ruins to their advantage. When the final confrontation came, it was not sheer force that won the day, but strategy, coordination, and trust. Ethan's human ingenuity, paired with Kaylara's alien strength, allowed them to turn the battle, leaving their pursuers defeated or retreating. Breathing heavily after the fight, Kaylara looked at Ethan. I was wrong about humans," she admitted. "You are more than I imagined." Ethan smiled, though his exhaustion was evident. "And you, Kaylara, are more than your instincts. Together we can survive anything." For the first time, Kaylara repeated the words without hesitation, without confusion. "Whatever you did to me, do it again," Ethan understood. She had surrendered, not to him, but to the concept of trust, partnership, and respect. Humanity had earned her recognition, not through domination, but through courage, ingenuity, and empathy. And in that moment, Kaylara's eyes reflected something she had never allowed herself to feel before: hope. As dawn broke again over Virelia 7, Ethan and Kaylara stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The bond between human and alien warrior was forged, not from fear but from understanding and respect. And in a universe that often underestimated humanity, they were a living testament to its unpredictable strength. They walked forward together, stronger, wiser, and united, proof that humanity could earn respect even from the fiercest alien warrior, and that survival was never just about power, but about the choices one made and the bonds one forged along the way.